I have with me also Ananya Singh. She's the founder of the Kalaa Store. Ananya, it's good to have you and thank you for patiently waiting your turn to speak on the telecast. But if you could shed more light into what Kalaa Store is all about.
Sure, good to be here. Thank you for having me. So, Kalaa Store is essentially a social enterprise. So, we are working with women based in rural villages and urban slums. And our idea is to essentially ensure a sustainable livelihood for them by upskilling them in an untapped skill set. So, we work largely with crochet, and we have a non-profit that basically undertakes upskilling programs. And the idea is to essentially ensure that they have access to home-based work. So a lot of these women have constraints resulting from patriarchy and poverty that limit their ability to go out to factories and other workplaces. So we basically bring the supply chain to their doorstep. And because it's a completely handmade process, they can do it from their homes. And our idea is to basically link them to the market for sustainable fashion, which is currently at $9 billion in India. And also, hopefully get them access to international markets as well.
Right.
So we're basically promoting sustainability by a lot of this conversation has been around, like bringing up our culture, our roots, our traditions. So these women are essentially the soul of our country, and they are by nature or by circumstance, by upbringing, they are thrifty in their practices, they're creative, so they have very sustainable practices, and we're trying to bring that manufacturing practice to the consumers. We also have like a direct-to-consumer brand. It's called the Kalaa Store, and this basically links these women to the market for crochet, apparel, accessories, and home decor.
Yeah, and I think I see an example of your crochet work, one of these, I think the earring that you're wearing. Okay, all right. So also, crochet has been practiced in our country. I remember my grandmother used to crochet these table mats and even clothes and even making laces out of crochet. And to be honest, if you go in international markets, it's very expensive. You buy crochet and it costs you a bomb, and what you're doing is fantastic, because you're reviving this crochet technique which used to be prevalent on a large scale with maybe your your grandmothers, every household having somebody or the other practicing or doing your crochet work. And which is stopped, unfortunately, because our lives have become so fast and women have started to step out of their homes and would then get busy with the rigmarole of life, of their work-life balance and so on and so forth. So when you bring these women together, you're also working towards sustainable fashion, which is crochet. Now what is it that you're doing to grow this industry, to grow your footfall, to have more and more of these women, these craftswomen, to come into the circle of Kalaa Store?
Yeah, good question. So I think you correctly tapped the essence of Kalaa, because we started with a range of products. At the essence, we were looking for a livelihood that could be created for India's vulnerable female population. So there are about 91 million women in India today who are not in any education, training, or employment. So they're basically sitting in their homes and they can't step out because of their care constraints. They have small babies, or they're also the primary caretakers of their families. And as you know, there are several social constraints in India. So crochet came out to be one of those crafts that, as you mentioned, it's passed down through tradition. It is widely prevalent in India, especially in our villages, our rural communities, but it's hidden. It's not there. It's not out in the market, and you are seeing an insane premium for these products abroad. So how can you link these women who are the creators, who are practicing this? It's also therapeutic for them. How can you get them access to that market? So we started out by, we basically organized these women into self-help groups. So through our non-profit trust, we basically do upskilling projects. These are, it can range from about 6 classes to 8 classes. And then they basically pick up how to use crochet not just to make their traditional products. It would be like a toran that they hang on the door, or a thali cover that they use in weddings, or they also make like TV covers for their houses. How do you use that same craft that they're using for their traditional practices and now make, let's say, a pair of shorts that could sell in Zara? Because that's where the premium customer is, that's who wants to pay for it. And I do believe in the story that consumers will be willing to pay for sustainable fashion products if they know the source, if you're transparent about the supply chain, you link them to the story. So there's a lot of education of the consumer that needs to go in here, a lot of storytelling to make the consumer understand that each product that is handmade, it holds a story. You know, most of these women, they'll be nursing their babies while they're making a crochet product, and these products are filled with stories. So it's a lot of like, consumers need to go back to our roots. We need to we need to start buying products that are nostalgic. If we're not making them, at least buy products that hold a story, and then keep those products for your entire lifetime.
There's also a big challenge for sustainable products, sustainable fashion to then be appealing to a wider market, keeping in mind the price points, which can be much higher than fast fashion. So how are you finding a solution to this problem?
So, this is what's actually come out. It's very sad, but, because it's a handmade products, they take time to make, and machine-made products obviously will sell at a cheaper price. Now what's happening is crochet is actually one of those crafts that can't be made by machines. But you're seeing like replicas of crochet that are selling at crazy cheap rates. Like, we've been exploring the export market, and the rates are so low to the end artisan, because there are so many middlemen in the supply chain that they're cutting the rate that's being provided to the artisan. So I think a key in this lies in the consumer. The consumer needs to be willing to understand and educate themselves on what has gone through that supply chain, who's getting what margin in the supply chain, who should get what margin, right? You do appropriate some amount to business for the amount of branding and efforts that they've made. But the consumers should be willing to educate themselves and demand sustainable products. So today, for example, if a consumer was to demand a handmade product, the buying houses or the suppliers in the middle, they wouldn't be able to buy machine-made products because the consumer is demanding a handmade product. That's when our entire supply chain will come down to handlooms and these products that are made in homes of rural women. So I think it's both things. Everyone in the supply chain needs to be educated, but at the end of the day, the consumer should not only start demanding. I know there's been an increase in demand for products that are, say, eco-friendly, that are made of cotton or khadi, but can you also start demanding products that are made by hand? I think that if that starts coming, then a lot of the supply chain will be, it will encourage home-based work.
I think greater awareness and the ability to recognize the work that is then provided by the artisans, and like you mentioned, the people should be willing to pay from where the source of their piece of clothing or the piece of fashion that they buy is coming from. Thank you so much, Ananya, for joining us on the telecast and sharing your experience as a promoter and a practitioner of slow fashion, of sustainable fashion. All right, on that note, I'm completely out of time, and I thank you all for